Hey everybody, some of you have asked, hey, what happened to that reaction video you did with Dr. Morgan or with BK Pets? And I will tell you that, I'm new to all this stuff, and I know that I see people using clips of other people's videos in their videos, and so I started doing that. You guys know I would show interviews with what Dr. Judy was saying, and then I would counter it and put a clip of mine in there responding to what she had said. And I really did enjoy those, and I know you guys did too. But I read through some of the YouTube rules, and really, you're not supposed to do that. I mean, I can't find anywhere where that's really allowed, and I sure don't want to get in trouble. I sure don't want to get sued, and I don't want to lose the channel because I really enjoy doing this with you folks. So I went through and I pulled those 5 or 6 videos off of being public. And what I did with this one here is I went in and I just deleted all the clips of the other person. So this one actually is BK Pets did a video on their criteria, what they look for in choosing a good kibble. And so I went through. I hope you get just as much out of it, even though you can't hear him. You'll hear me give an answer to his comment or his question or his comments. So it's a little jumbled maybe, but I think it's a lot of good information. And I know I did this video quite a while ago. I know there's so many new people, and welcome to the channel. I hope you'll check out a few of my videos, see what I'm all about, read my description. But so this video is my first attempt at trying to delete all those clips and still give the good information. So when you go through, you'll see it kind of jump here and jumping all over, but it's basically responding to the clips that I had from Bryce from BK Pets. Bryce and his wife, they have a very successful channel. He does admit they had a all-natural store in the day, and it was actually listening to Dr. Becker. I always talk about how our bias is formed by the different people we listen to and trust. And Dr. Becker opened up the whole world of holistic and all natural and species appropriate and all that. And now they have this website and YouTube channel and all. And so my effort is just to really counter some of the what I feel is really bad information. So I hope this is useful. Those of you, my regulars, my loyal folks that are there all the time, let me know, because I want to do this with Dr. Judy's video and Dr. Becker's, a few of the others, but I am going to pull out the clips because, again, when I read the YouTube rules, if you didn't create it, it really shouldn't be in your video. And so I want to play by the rules. So as much as I really enjoyed that, and I thought it was great to hear both views, I know there's no way they would give me permission if I even asked to use their clips in my videos. That's just not going to happen. Those of you that know my opinion, they're never going to say, oh, sure, go ahead. I would have no problem with anybody using my clips in any of their videos. I'm not going to sue anybody, but again, why would anybody do that? So here we go. This is Bryce from BK Pets and me responding to his comments about how he would go about choosing a good kibble. And I hope you find it useful. And again, if you're new, welcome. And if you're some of my old friends of the Nutrition Mission, let me know, is this okay? Should I do this with the other videos? Okay, thanks. So now Bryce spent 3 years talking to veterinarians and nutritionists, and right there, I'm very suspect. Now I've been doing this 34 years, so I have a little more time under my belt. But again, I think the kid is sincere. I really do. But what veterinarians is he talking to? And when he says he's talked to nutritionists, you all know we've talked about this before in other videos. The word nutritionist really means nothing anymore. I mean, a board certified nutritionist on the veterinary side, not even the human side, that is a true nutritionist. But now there's certified nutritionists running all over the place. Dr. Judy will certify you as a certified nutritionist. I just saw on Facebook a course I can take to become a certified holistic nutritionist. I mean, the word means nothing now. So I am a little curious as to who he actually talked to. Did he really talk to real nutritionists? And of course, talking to veterinarians, well, they're just general practitioners, so you get all kinds of answers there. But anyway, we talk about bias a lot on this channel. I have a bias for sure. So does Bryce, based on his 3 years of everything he's heard from veterinarians and nutritionists. So um, you'll probably be able to tell what type of nutritionist these are as he goes through his six. These are the 6 criteria to choose a good food. Spoiler alert, I don't think one of these is actually valid, as I'll explain. But again, this is, when you're in retail and you have that retail mind, you love marketing, you love messaging, and you're more susceptible to take it in and believe it as gospel, and then give it out to everybody else. And he's definitely in that boat. And at the end, stay with me here, because at the end he actually is going to go through some of the industry tricks, which I totally agree. You guys have heard it from me, but it's kind of funny that these people that will expose these tricks are actually the same people that then succumb to the trick in judging foods based on ingredients and all. So it's kind of funny how we'll agree on a lot of this, but then he'll turn around and use it to try to judge food. So everybody seems to do that. Dr. Judy does. Everybody does it. So we'll see that in a second too. He's looking at the nutritional statement, and he's looking for complete and balanced. Now, this is something that Dr. Becker and Dr. Judy and everybody out there that is totally different than me, opposed to my view, will agree with me that complete and balanced doesn't mean a whole lot. And Bryce actually correctly says, now he didn't bring up AFCO, but it's complete and balanced based on AFCO's ranges for nutrients. And he is right that all AFCO cares about is don't be deficient, just be above the standard that we have decided. And like, again, pretty much everybody of us on both sides of this argument or debate agree AFCO is pretty lame and more bureaucratic than it is nutritional. But anyway, so he's looking for that complete and balanced. Now, I know some of you watch my videos and just listen while you're cooking or doing other stuff. That's kind of how I do YouTube videos, especially when they get long. But if you have a minute, go back, and I want you to just pause on those different ingredient panels that or those nutritional statements that he showed. There was something interesting in there that, again, this has me thinking whoever he's talking to are just ingredientists and not nutritionists, because he's looking for complete balance, which really, like he says, just means minimums. He has no idea about the maximums that are in those foods, the imbalances in those foods, but there is an indication on that nutritional statement that some of you, I hope, especially my nutrition mission folks, would notice. If you look at 2 of them, I think it was 2, he showed 3. 2 of them showed a complete and balanced for what? For all life stages. One of them happened to be Science Diet, because it's right there in the labeling. Science Diet was for maintenance. So what does that tell you right there? He's not looking at nutrients, right? He's just looking at this statement, which really he admits means very little, it's just minimums. But it tells me, knowing what I know now, and hopefully many of you too, that when I see complete balance for all life stages, all it means is there's no deficiencies in that food for every stage of life, which includes puppyhood. Okay, so what is it? Nutritionally, it's a puppy food. It may say adult on the bag. Some may even say senior on the bag. But that nutritional statement is a legally binding statement, and it's saying if it says all life stages, already I know it's excessive for my adult dog or my older dog. Why? Because it's puppy food, and most of us know to feed puppy food to an adult dog or an older dog is just not optimal. You can do it. They may gain a little weight on it or whatever, but you're really just you're not doing smart nutrition. Bryce totally misses that. Again, so this is, it indicates to me he needs to start listening to some nutritionists out there, not just ingredientists. Okay, so first point there is complete and balanced really means nothing unless I'm looking for complete and balanced and I see maintenance. Then that food's still in my query that I might choose to feed. But if it says for all life stages, I'm done. That one's out the window. Hope that makes sense. I have other videos on it. Dr. Ray has a great video on all life stage food. You guys should check it out. But again, the whole point is he's missing the point because he's just looking for complete and balanced. So, and then he admits it's only minimums anyway. So, so there's the first point. I disagree. That would not be in my criteria. Okay, here he starts out really good. The guaranteed analysis, and he shows one. And as most of you know, it's just minimums and maximums. And unfortunately, don't ask me why. This is one of the issues I have with AFCO. I'm more interested in the maximum amount of minerals in the food and the maximum amount of protein than I am minimum. So it really tells me nothing about the quality of the food, really the composition, nothing, because it's just minimums and maximums. But while he's on that subject, he gets into that we have to look at the ingredient panel because some food companies are using plant-based proteins along with meat protein. So right away, there's my red flag that he's an ingredientist, that meat is good and everything else is bad or cheap. And so he starts there getting into different sources of protein, which has nothing to do with the guaranteed analysis. So again, the guaranteed analysis is not another criteria I would look at. And he also, what was the other thing? He said, oh, carbohydrates. So right away, when he starts with the carbohydrates, I know who he's listening to. And carbohydrates, to be too high in carbohydrates is really kind of um, it's misinformation. It's a scare tactic. And the point is, when you say carbohydrate, my goodness, it's such a broad umbrella of definition, from carbs that produce fatty acids or protein versus fiber versus all kinds of things. So carbs really we should stop using the term, because there's too many grains and vegetables and all kinds of things that do very different things. But ingredientists just lump it all together, and carbs are bad because that's just the latest fad out there, not based on any real science, but it works well when you're selling pet food. So again, guaranteed analysis, I think that was one of his criteria he looks at. I would look at it, but I know it's limited in what it tells me. It tells me nothing about the quality of the food. Okay, now I got to stop there for a minute so we don't get confused here. He is talking about animal fat, and then he says that they can mix different protein sources. I think we should clarify this is something Bryce doesn't know. But generally, the animal fat, it's a rendered product. There is no meat protein with that animal fat. So you actually could have your protein source could be beef and soy and egg, and your fat in the diet, your dietary fat for energy, could be pork fat or chicken fat, whatever. There are animals that are deathly allergic to chicken. They can't have chicken, but they can have a food with chicken fat because the fat doesn't have protein molecules that are making the allergen in the diet. So he seems to be confused. And again, he's talking to the wrong people here, to be honest. So when he thinks animal fat has anything to do with the protein sources, he's wrong. They're two very separate things. And again, the proof of it is hypoallergenic diets that will use chicken fat, but not chicken as a protein source, and they'll work with the animal. So he's a little confused there. I just wanted to make sure you guys understood that as you listen to that. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, well, Bryce it's true here what he's saying, that if you feed a food and it has some other protein sources in it that aren't listed on the bag or can, it could elicit a response in your hypoallergenic dog. So that is totally true. The problem is, real world, most companies are going to they're guilty of cross contamination. They're making their venison diet, but the last batch that went through was chicken based, and there's still some chicken stuff in that system. So, and that's where you get cross contamination. Royal Canin and Hills have looked at foods out there that claim to be a novel ingredient, for hypoallergenic dogs, and sure enough, they find trace elements of the other ones. So it's something you have to trust the company is really doing due diligence to make sure there's no cross contamination. And vets hear that all the time. Well, I tried a venison diet, I tried a duck diet, and it didn't work at all. Well, could it be your dog's allergic to that protein, or could it be that there's other protein sources in there? And Bryce is right that food companies can actually mingle and mix that stuff up without changing the ingredient panel. So yeah, if I have a hypoallergenic dog, I have to be really careful what I feed. So we'll both agree on that one. Here's another mark of an ingredientist, okay, or somebody influenced by ingredientists. I'm looking for high quality carbs. I like these carbs. They're green, they're leafy, they're in, they're the vogue. Is that the right word? Or they're the in vegetables right now, and carbs. Those are good. These over here, which he'll talk about in a minute, these are bad. He actually is more honest than most about the bad ones, but I don't know where to stick this in, so I'm going to stick it in here. You guys have all heard this from folks like Bryce and Dr. Becker and Dr. Judy and Rachel and Rodney, all of them. The salt rule. Now here he is telling you about how blueberries and kale, all this stuff is so wonderful, right? But if you look at where the salt is, anything below salt, listed below salt, is so minuscule in the diet because there's not much salt in a food, that it's worthless. Okay, so if you go back again, if you're not cooking or something, go back and look at that list, that ingredient panel he just showed you. Find the blueberries and the kale and all that wonderful stuff, and look way above, and way above you'll find salt. Okay, so let's apply the rule that all these ingredientists use, that if it's below salt, it's not even worth being in there. It's just marketing. But yet, here's an example. He knows this. They all know it. The salt rule is silly. I mean, things way different, you know. But to his point, probably, yeah, just because it has all those wonderful things in it doesn't mean it's at any level that it's doing anything. But he just fell for it. He's just saying, here, look for this. This is good. And later, he's going to talk about the salt rule. So you see the inconsistencies? Just look at the nutrient levels. You know, a lot has been learned over the years about omega-3s and omega-6s, and I guess there's omega-9s out there that I know very little about, but it's all not only the source. Like, you can use flax seed or flax oil, and there's a debate over which one's actually more absorbable for the pet. But the point is, there's other sources of omega-3s or omega-6s besides just fish oil. When you really need high levels, though, fish oil is definitely the best source. Prescription diets will use fish oil in their arthritic diets for omega-3s because of the high DHA levels and EPA and things like that. But you can definitely, and you will see flaxseed on a lot of different foods if you ever wondered what that is. It's an omega-3 source. And not to really, I will say one thing, I did talk with a board certified nutritionist. When it comes to fish, the whole topic of fish, there's actually much less regulation on fish and fish definitions than on meat. So it's really kind of scary as to what you're getting. Again, you can look at omega-6 and omega-3 levels and see the ratios and all. That's much more important than looking for an ingredient, because fish oil, you have no idea the quality. It just says fish oil. Flax, same way. So yeah, that's all important. But again, you're not getting much from just an ingredient panel telling you fish oil. Okay, so like you said, he already touched on this, but the animal fat's totally different from the protein sources. But it's interesting that the veterinarians he talked with said, oh, that's a way that they can sneak in low quality meat sources. Okay, those of you from the nutrition mission, how do veterinarians know if the meat sources are high quality or low quality? Based on the animal fat in the food? Not at all. Based on what? Based on the nutrients. Show me the nutrients. If it's high in phosphorus, especially phosphorus and calcium, and very excessive, 2-3 times, sometimes 4 times the healthy range, what does that tell you? There's bone, hair, hoof, feathers, chicken lips, whatever. There's something in that meat source. It's low quality, probably a bunch of dirt as well, and it's cheap, and it goes into food, and it still says meat. The ingredient panel will not tell you, oh, it's full of bone and hair and hoof and all that other stuff. It just says meat or meat meal or whatever. So again, Bryce is missing the point. It has nothing to do with the animal fat. And this is what allows, to his point, this is what allows food companies to put crap in there. I sound like Dr. Judy now, to put low quality meat sources in there, because no one knows how to look to see if it's high quality. If it's low in calcium and phosphorus, and you find there's many foods, we've looked at them on Dr. Ray's channel, we've looked at them, and they're great. So what does that tell us? One, it's healthier for our pets. That's good. The other is they're spending good money on high quality meat sources. But so far with Bryce's criteria, I have no idea. Next up. Okay, he went through a lot of different vague definitions up there, but I think real quick, I do have to give him credit, because after showing all that list, he said byproducts doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, or meals being a bad thing. And so kudos to him for saying that, because you don't really get that from Dr. Judy or Dr. Becker or Rodney or Rachel or Dr. Jones. That's all garbage. It's all McDonald's. It's all whatever. And he's right. When again, going back to the limitations of ingredient definitions. Now, I'm surprised he put liver meal up there, because liver is specific to liver, and it's a meal, so it's been dried. And the only question is, I still don't know the quality of that liver meal without looking at the calcium and phosphorus. All those others, byproducts. Again, you'll see a lot of foods now use heart, liver. They list the byproducts they're putting in there. to kind of make it sound better, but in reality, it all legally is poultry byproducts or chicken byproducts or beef byproducts. So again, the definitions, that list he doesn't like. I mean, animal fat, that's not a problem. Animal digest, that's actually a concoction that food companies make to make its flavor. It's really not there as a nutritional thing. It's a lot of people get confused with it, but it's somebody explained to me it's kind of like a controlled rot that they do with this stew to create this really palatable substance that dogs and cats love, and then it's sprayed on the kibble. I know that doesn't sound great, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not a nutritional component in the food. But when you see natural flavors or animal digest, now which one sounds better to you? They're both the same thing. It's just there's the vagueness of the definitions that AFCO allows pretty much say anything. So I appreciate that he said just because it says byproducts, that doesn't mean it's a low quality ingredient. He's right. Unfortunately, he doesn't know how to identify the high quality ones the way we do. Because what do? We look at the nutrients. Next, like he said, one thing which I love that he said it. There's actually no legal definition for species appropriate. It is a marketing term, not a nutritional term. We all understand what it means, and sure, if we look at wolves in the wild, what they eat. What I would tell you though is what they eat in the wild is totally irrelevant to your dog, who are trying to keep to live 3, maybe 4 times as long as the average wolf. Okay. What we know about nutrition science, he mentioned, fish oil for omega-3s and quality protein and all this other stuff. We take what nature shows us as far as, what the biology of the wolf, what they can eat. Cat would be the same thing. But from that, we say, okay, when cats and dogs get older, you know what? A high meat-based diet that's full of protein and calcium and phosphorus. I can only imagine the calcium and phosphorus level that the average wolf takes in. That can become very harmful. It can become a liability to that older dog whose now his kidneys are tired or are starting to form urinary stones. So we take nature, but nature is very limited when it comes to nutrition. All nutrition does for the average wolf, keep them alive long enough to reproduce a couple times, and then they die from an assortment of things, mostly man. But that's all nutrition does. It has its limitations. Nutrition science is we're going to look at all the nutrients and all those ingredients and find out, hey, we could actually prolong life and manage disease, which is pretty amazing, by controlling nutrients. And those nutrients are delivered by what? By certain ingredients. So when he says, I don't want to use, and you hear this all the time, I don't want them using carbs. Now, again, I give him credit. Yes, the modern dog today can definitely digest carbohydrates. And again, carbohydrates is a big umbrella term, lots of things. I mean, corn provides for the modern dog and even a cat. I know people don't want to hear it. Let's just stick with dogs, I guess, and wolves. But that corn provides high quality protein as far as certain amino acids. It provides energy for sure. I'd much rather be giving them energy through corn and dietary fat than protein, overtaxing those kidneys. There's fatty acids, and he talked about fatty acids. That's in corn. Soy is another excellent source of protein as long as you mix it with egg or egg and meat, that kind of thing. And all that function does is allow a food company to reduce the mineral content to help protect those old kidneys or that old heart, whatever. That's what we're trying to do. So species appropriate sounds really good, and he was honest enough to say it's not a nutritional statement. It's just more a philosophical statement that yes, in the wild, this is what they eat. But boy, I sure want my dogs to live a whole lot longer than the average wolf. There's no senior wolves out there. There's no geriatrics in nature. That's what nutrition science does. We're not opposing nature. We're just learning from nature to say, hey, with that, we can go ahead and manage kidney disease and urinary stones and diabetes and on and on and on. You're not getting that in a species appropriate diet. If your dog is totally healthy and is doing great, especially if they're young, yeah, you can kind of play around with all these philosophical ideas, but not when they get older. That's when it gets serious. That's why blood work is so important. So I really appreciate how he approached it, and he admitted it's not a legal term, and he admitted that yes, dogs can utilize carbs. And he just didn't, because he's an ingredientist, not a nutritionist. He doesn't understand why a food company would use corn, wheat, or soy. Now, wheat, I could make an argument for wheat. It's probably one of the highest allergens out there. I know Hill still uses it in a number of their foods. I do question that. Why? Now, I know their answer is going to be there's so few animals that have food allergies, it's not a problem. It's kind of like peanut butter. My kids grew up on peanut butter. Tons of kids eat peanut butter, but of course, there's kids that die from peanuts. Do we outlaw peanut butter just because of that small minority? Okay, now here's the ingredientist in Bryce coming out for sure. His belief that, well, if I get whole ingredients and farm fresh and cage free, and I am all for the humane treatment of animals, so I'm all for that. But to say that it's nutritionally better or that you're going to get different nutrient levels, that isn't true. And when he talks about Dr. Judy, who has absolutely no credentials with nutrition whatsoever, I've proven that many times in my videos with her and her interviews and all. When she says that synthetics act different than natural, I'm sure they do. I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but that's why you have the experts, the nutritionists, and the folks that are chemists and all that are looking at if this supplement works a little different than the amount we get in this food, then we're going to change the levels to make sure we get the amount we want. Like antioxidants, you get antioxidants from blueberries. If you think you're getting enough antioxidants from blueberries instead of a supplement, you're wrong, because I can look at the amount of vitamin E and stuff in these foods with no supplements, and it's not near the amount you're going to get in Hills or Royal Canin or some of the other foods out there that have done the research to know how much antioxidants need to be in here to reduce free radical damage. Just because you're using blueberries, and again, it's probably way down on the list and it's just in there to make you feel good. So I don't agree with Dr. Judy on that. Many of us take supplements, and so this is this is where we're really into ingredientists now. And what did he say? You're going to pay a lot more. Holy cow, you're going to pay a lot more. I know I've mentioned it, but Medicus veterinary diets, they mirror Hill's prescription diet as far as the nutrient levels and all, but they use the fancy, wonderful, clean, whole ingredients. And instead of $5 or $6 a pound, you're going to pay, hear this, $40 a pound for their food to get those kind of ingredients, even though there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever that that would be better than the foods that are coming out of Hills or Royal Canin or Purina, as long as they match those nutrient levels. So there you go. There's a true ingredientist. But Bryce didn't do too bad. There are a few things that he's catching on. I just wish he would broaden his horizon. This is absolutely correct. Now, there's times where ingredient splitting is not as obvious. Like if you have whole ground corn, it's pretty much a carbohydrate. If you see corn gluten meal, they've actually taken the protein, the heart of that corn out, and created a protein source. So there are times where, to be fair to food companies, the ingredients are a little different. They're sourced differently, they're processed differently. And so that is true. But he is right that the benefit of that, and this is what most of you know this, but you need to understand this, the ingredient panel goes by weight, not by amounts. So the heaviest ingredient is first. Now, he didn't get into it here, but the reason he talked about seeing real meat, and you'll hear people say it's got to be the first ingredient, or look at the first 5 ingredients. No, you don't want to do that. That's the marketing people training you to look at the ingredient panel, because they manipulate it. They know the law. This is the law. Heaviest ingredient on down. Let's use some meat. Could be the worst meat in the world, right? But it's what, 70% water, 75% water? So all that water weight shoots it right to the front of the ingredient panel. That's why you'll see many foods will have chicken, and then they'll have chicken meal or something like that. You're like, well, why do they need chicken meal if they have all that chicken in there? Because most of that is water weight. The real protein source is the chicken meal, because that's dry. It's like a powder. You have the weight of that is much more protein than real meat with mostly water. So the ingredient panel is not there to inform you. It's there to manipulate you to spend more money. Okay. Bryce just explained that. Maybe not totally everything that I just did, but he's right. They split ingredients. They use meat first, which is all water weight, but it's all because they can manipulate things based on the weight, and they can't change that. That's the law, but they sure have learned how to manipulate it. And yet, what do you find? You find all these people, the ingredientists, looking at that ingredient panel. They're being snookered by the very people they don't like. They don't like Hills, Royal Canin, and Purina, who's delivering healthy nutrient levels. They love these foods that put in these meat sources that we have no idea the quality unless you look at the nutrients. And when we do, what do we find? horrible nutrient levels. And then we look at the AFCO statement, nutritional statement. What do we find? Complete and balanced for all life stages. So it's all excessive, it's all unhealthy, and it's all extremely expensive. And that's the industry. They should be mad at them, but instead they celebrate them and they demonize Hills, Royal Canin, and Purina because they're big companies. Everything he said there is totally true, but yet what do we find? The brands that most of these ingredientists recommend actually use all those buzzwords. They really do. The only one that I think I would disagree with is hypoallergenic, because you can make a diet that's hypoallergenic. That's a real standard you can measure. Vet approved, you see that on everybody now. Sure, you can say most vets prefer the companies that they trust, that they use, that kind of thing. But yeah, anybody could put that on a bag. Natural, holistic, come on, holistic is on everything that these ingredientists love to promote. But yet he's right, it's a buzzword. It means literally nothing. I mean, you can process the food any way you want. You can use any ingredient you want. You can do whatever you want to it and call it holistic. That's why when I hear holistic veterinarian, what does that mean? Whatever he said, whatever you feel it means, that's what it means. Well, come on, we got to think smarter than that for the health of our pets. It's all marketing, but I would be much more concerned with foods that offer a high price and use terms like holistic and natural and species appropriate, and then deliver really horrible, excessive, imbalanced nutrient levels. I wish he was more concerned about that than just some of these misleading things. But again, he really has just been indoctrinated by the ingredientists. And but he did definitely bring up some stuff in this video that I got to give him credit for, at least trying to be an investigative person and try to get to the truth. So there you go. That's I'm going to cut it off there. Some of the stuff he said was pretty good, actually, but you can see it's a great example of an ingredientist and philosophy versus a nutritionist. And so I hope that was beneficial. Please let me know what you think. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.